Daphne Odjig was born at Wikwemikong First Nations territory on Manitoulin Island, Ontario, on September 11, 1919. She was the oldest of 4 children born to Dominic and Joyce Odjig. She and her siblings, Stanley, Donald, and Winnie, grew up in the loving care of her parents and paternal grandfather, Jonas, in a distinctive stone house in the little town of Wikwemikong. Daphne's mother, Joyce, was an English war bride who had met and married Dominic Odjig while he was serving overseas with the Canadian Forces during World War I. She returned with him to his home on Manitoulin Island after the war. The family was musical, athletic, and artistic. Daphne played the guitar, danced, and competed in community track and field events. She was an avid student at the Jesuit Mission School in Wikwemikong until she contracted rheumatic fever in 1932 when she was 13 years old and had to leave school to convalesce. Her grandfather, Jonas, an accomplished stone carver, took over her education and taught her drawing and visual composition. Jonas's visual influence can be seen in the dominant curvilinear lines of Odjig's drawings and paintings, lines that recall the marks a carver would scribe on a rock. Daphne's mother and grandfather died within months of one another in 1938, and the family's life was thrown into turmoil. Daphne left Manitoulin Island with her younger sister, Winnie, to seek work on the mainland. The pair stayed in Parry Sound for a time, then moved to Toronto. The outbreak of World War II had created new jobs for young women, and Daphne was able to work at several factory jobs to support herself and Winnie. Meanwhile, she spent her evenings and weekends drawing at the Royal Ontario Museum and the Toronto Art Gallery, teaching herself to paint by copying the works of famous artists there. This picture, Roots, currently hangs in the Lieutenant Governor's office at Queen's Park. It's a triptych, a series of 3 connected panels painted in 1979. The first panel shows Daphne as a little girl at Wikwemikong, in the circle of her loving family, ancestors, and protective spirits. Note the small tree on the right of the panel. In the middle panel, that tree is uprooted as Daphne sets out for Toronto. Here she worked to support herself and her sister and met and married her first husband, Paul. Can you see how Daphne paints the tree as a transforming being amid motifs of distress and new beginnings? The third panel on the right shows the tree well planted and thriving as Daphne establishes a new home and a loving family in British Columbia. In 1964, Daphne was invited to return to Wikwemikong to attend the community's 4th annual powwow. This was a relatively new experience, for such ceremonial and celebratory events had long been outlawed by the Canadian government. She initially hesitated when asked to join in the dancing. It felt so strange and foreign. But when at last she moved into the circle with her relatives, something in her spirit awoke. You see, she had put aside many of the teachings and lifeways of her Indigenous forebears. She had even changed her name from Odjig to Fisher to better fit into Canadian society. But when she began to dance to the beat of the drum, with her family around her that day, she said she suddenly realized who she was and where she came from. "I became an Indian," she told me. From 1964 on, Daphne's art focused on Indigenous heritage, traditions, beliefs, and stories, and the cultural awakening she envisioned for her family, community, and people. From then on, she put away the anglicized name Fisher and signed her paintings Odjig. And she began to understand her art's potential to preserve her culture and renew her community's purpose and pride. When her sister-in-law invited her to visit the elders on various communities on Manitoulin Island and record their stories, legends, and memories, Daphne enthusiastically agreed. Her efforts resulted in a compilation of 10 illustrated children's books called The Legends of Nanabush, published in 1971. The little books were still in use until very recently as reading primers in the elementary school at Wikwemikong and were reissued for general readers in 2009. In 1966, Daphne and her second husband, a community development officer for the Canadian government, were posted to Easterville in northern Manitoba to assist a small community of Cree who had been displaced to make way for a hydroelectric dam project near Grand Rapids, Manitoba. Struck by the hardship and resilience she saw there, Daphne made a series of pen and ink drawings to document the difficult living conditions the people were enduring. Her experience at Easterville changed her perception and her work. She saw the injustice and inequality around her and began to paint about it. She also noticed the hardship the trees and the animals were experiencing near her home in central British Columbia, where large-scale lumber harvesting was decimating the old-growth forests. She developed a distinctive landscape style that incorporated trees as living, sentient beings and the land as a sensitive participant in our human lives. Odjig was one of the first Canadian artists to actively advocate for ecological responsibility, creating a large body of work based on her observations and concerns. This picture from 1986 expresses her sense of the importance and beauty of trees and forests as communities of individuals with just as much right to life and freedom as human beings. She was also deeply interested in telling the history of her people, a history too often ignored in school curricula or history books. Daphne painted this picture, a monumental mural more than 30 feet long, titled The Indian in Transition, in 1978. It was commissioned by the Canadian Museum of History, but was not actually installed in the museum's public gallery until 2006. Before then, it hung rather obscurely near the ceiling of the museum's library. The mural shows the progression of Indigenous history in North America, from a place of harmony and tradition on the left, to the coming of the Europeans, to the dominance of the church, the residential school system, and the social harm and loss they caused, to a time of cultural renewal and restored harmony on the far right. She explored this theme of community and individual recovery from the predations of colonialism in many drawings and paintings. In this piece, Spiritual Renewal, 1984, which is organized as 2 panels, a diptych, we see the dominance of the church on the left and the resurgence of the drum, the dance, and the use of medicines on the right. Daphne's message was always clear, that the way forward for our people must involve reaching back to the old knowledge, the old practices, and the ever-present spirits, who are represented by the resplendent blue bird on the far right of the picture. Over the course of her life, Daphne Odjig received many public acknowledgements and awards, recognizing her commitment to the story of our people, both the beauty and the value of our nations and our histories, and the injustices and harms we still need to overcome. Among these many awards are included numerous honorary degrees from Canadian universities, a Governor General's Award in Visual and Media Arts, and the highest civilian honor our country can bestow, an Order of Canada. A retrospective exhibition of Daphne's works, surveying 60 years of her active artistic production, toured Canada and the USA from 2007 until 2010. The exhibition was organized by the Art Gallery of Sudbury and the National Gallery of Canada, and was curated by me. Here is Daphne at the National Gallery in 2010, with artist Joseph Sanchez steering her wheelchair, and her son, Stanley Somerville, standing beside her. What a proud and happy day that was. In preparation for her retrospective exhibition, Duke Redbird was commissioned to write a poem for inclusion in the exhibition catalog. We're honored that he has agreed to contribute a reading of his poem to this story of Daphne's life.
Ani, Bojo, Sego, Tanse, greetings. I'm Dr. Duke Redbird, an artist and poet. I'm a father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and elder from the Saugeen Ojibwe First Nation. Daphne Odjig, who lived from 1919 to 2016, is regarded as the grandmother of Aboriginal art. Daphne Odjig said that if her art has opened doors between Native and non-Native Canadians, then I am glad. I am even more deeply pleased if it has helped to encourage the young people to express their pride in our heritage more openly, more joyfully than I would ever have dared to think possible. In keeping with these sentiments of Daphne Odjig, I was inspired to write this poem called Miigwech and Thank You, Daphne Odjig. There is a place they call the Haunted Shore. It's a place where the ancient spirits dwell, and you can hear their voices singing like the ringing of a bell. And the echo washes over you in kayak or canoe, the swirling of the whitecaps, the howling of the wind. They take you on a journey to the past, then bring you back again. And there upon those ancient rocks, with simple brush and pen, our ancestors painted with red ochre as a medium. The people drew their legacy in colors and in line. The memory of 10,000 years eternally enshrined. Since then, those days have faded fast. Canoes and kayaks no longer journey to the haunted rocks to view the ancient past. Today, that world has been replaced by computers and cell phones, and we no longer seek the smoking fires of those ancient ones. The uncontaminated sanctuary that was their flesh and bones. Each generation that is born must walk a different path, guided by a map drawn by those whose destiny it is to document the past. On Manitoulin Island, where the great mystery dwells, Daphne Odjig was born in that sacred land with a vision in her mind and a paintbrush in her hand. And as she wandered in meadows where the hawberry grows, she heard the stories that the wild creatures told. "Paint me," the voices cried. "Paint me as I once was. Paint me, our Mother Earth, and the people that she loves. Paint the embers that are burning, the wigwam that is well lit. Paint the milestones of our journey that is not over yet. Paint the challenges that face us, the struggles to be met. Paint the faith, the hope, and the visions of the past that we must not forget." Thank you, Daphne Odjig. Thank you, and Miigwech. Your canvases are a diagram etched in time, each painting stitched together like a patchwork quilt warms the dreaming spirit and gives guidance to the soul. Our children in the future may well walk among the stars in biospheres on Venus and on Mars, but they may never swim in the sparkling waters of a river, lake, or pond. Your paintings will be the memory of a universe that is gone, an echo from the past to which the future must respond. As our Mother Earth continues to evolve and the human family to exist, it is the artist who unveils our collective consciousness. We thank the Creator for giving us the privilege to witness such a gift. Thank you, Daphne Odjig, thank you, and Megwitch.